There's no sound. Can you hear us now? Sorry, we are waiting. Actually, this is pretty fitting for our Ranting Rainbows, if I'm being honest.
All right, what's the code?
It's, hang on.
You got it.
Yeah. 96833.
I'm only anxious about my coffee because I don't want to spill it.
You don't want to spill it.
Because I spilled it at the last stream we did, actually. I spilled the whole coffee. Yes.
Mazo, can you hear us now? Okay. We will be making a momentary switch. Watch how the screens change. And boom.
Okay. Is this good?
Peekaboo.
Awesome.
Okay, give us a heads up if you can. Oh, but then we can't see the comments if people are speaking.
But you can see it on your if you mute it.
Yeah.
If you're muting it and using Facebook, actually, you can on your other computer.
This is true. This is true. Fam, tell us where you're tuning in from. Let us know how it is this morning, this afternoon, this evening, wherever you're tuning in from. Let us know how that is going.
Yes.
Here we go.
Today is August 22nd. It's a full moon today. It's a blue moon.
It's a blue moon.
So,
we're playing the moon and the sun here.
Yeah, there you go.
A bit of a balance.
This is perfect,
isn't it?
Yeah.
And we have yes.
We got some new additions.
Yes.
We got llama here and we got elephant. So
and a giraffe back there.
Yeah. And a few unicorns back there, so you can get the theme of what's going on. That's exciting.
He said it's the 21st in us. It's not the 21st.
No, it's
What's
the 22nd. Who's saying it's the 21st?
I know. Mazen's trying to confuse us.
Nah, Mazen, it's the 22nd today. It's 8/28/2021.
Yes,
sure.
And the reason I know that is that today marks 20 years since my arrival to Turtle Island to start my university career. 20 years.
You came here 20 years ago?
Exactly 20 years ago today.
How does that feel today?
Heavy. Heavy.
I almost spit out my coffee. Wait, I forgot that about the show. Okay, so how does that feel? 20 years in the United States of America.
Well, lots to reflect on, lots to rant about, but so much to be grateful for. So much to be grateful
That's
for.
good. And I think that's like the right attitude to have, is being grateful about where you're at, the things that are happening in your life, because otherwise everything is just going to get too overwhelming as to like, I still have so much to go. Like in kind of reflecting and thinking about where you want to go, but also taking a moment to pause and appreciate how far you've come.
Yeah.
Like your journey right now.
Yes.
So that's an amazing thing to celebrate today, actually. Accomplishments, that is. All the great things that are happening.
All the great things that are happening. You know what's coming up to me is that meme of that little puppy so tired going up the stairs and saying, you know, fine, I won't quit, but I'll cuss every step along the way.
That's fitting. I think that's fitting. I'm trying to get rid of that attitude, but I'm having a hard time. Because I'm grateful. I appreciate a lot of the things that are happening.
But they're not exclusive though. You can be grateful,
right,
and still acknowledge that things, you know, are mad.
Because I get into a headspace where I'm like, if I'm grateful and I'm content about where I am, then I should be happy.
But you can be happy and still acknowledge that things are not where you want them to be just yet. They're not. I don't see them as exclusive. Like, okay, fine. I wanted to be in the village. I'm not in the village right now.
Right.
But I'm here, and because I'm here, I've been able to do X, Y, Z, A, B, C, 1, 2, 3, whatever, and everything, and even more.
True.
That one, I wouldn't be able to do while I was in the village. Two, I'm not the planner here. I'm not. I'm really not. Abu Bakr. Muhammad, I want my necklace back. It's the journey, not the destination.
Yeah.
Indeed. Mazen says gratitude is the key. And we have Myron, a returning unicorn. Hey, Myron.
Hey, Myron.
Thank you. And Mejdi, good morning. Well, it's afternoon on your side, no? Abu Bakr بيقول لي never.
Which one is never?
بقول لك you're in Miami. ما تخليش الستورم تعلى عليك. احترم نفسك and bring my necklace back. You know, he has my BD Festival
I love that necklace.
Mo?
I think it needs to be back also.
Yes. It needs to be returned promptly. I need to bring the plug so I can keep seeing your comments. Mine. No, because, you know, you're fancy.
Oh, shoot.
And I'm from 2013 here.
Oh, okay.
That's okay. It's okay. Gratitude is key.
That's fine.
I will be back.
Yeah. I'm excited to be here. It's too late in the afternoon in Western Europe is what Mejdi is saying.
Well, let's say Europe's always late.
And Mazen is saying you're never going to get your necklace back. I think he's priming your expectations.
No, Mazen just don't know. Mazen, if that's what you think, then I haven't done a good job really embedding who we are. What Kandaka has had something taken from her and just chilled about it.
Oh man, are we gonna open that can of worms?
I am opening. Okay, well, you listen. It's part of the trauma. This is Ranting Rainbows. I'm here to rant. We have an issue.
What is Ranting Rainbows? Let's introduce it to those.
That's
people.
Exactly what it is. It's like you're grateful. So you're grateful for the rainbow, but you're still gonna rant.
They're not mutually exclusive.
They're not mutually exclusive.
So we can still be salty.
Absolutely.
And happy at the same time.
Why not?
Sweet and sour is
a thing. Sweet and sour is a thing.
It's kind of like farting sprinkles.
واحنا بناكل. كده. Sevan, greetings to you from China. Greetings.
Hello. We are in Maryland on the East Coast. Yes. Today is actually not too humid.
No.
But it looks like it's going to rain a whole bunch. We're excited to be live. We actually don't have, this is our Ranting Rainbow series. It's not necessarily a scripted show, but we're just kind of talking about whatever that's relevant in the moment.
The things that have been coming up, and how we've navigated them, things that we've connected, dots that have been connected as things come up. So yes, relevant to this current moment. And I don't know about you all, but things, okay, show of hands, write something in the comments, put a word in the comments, whatever. Who has been hearing or feeling the word overwhelmed more than the number of years they've lived on this earth so far? So if you're 23 years old, the past few weeks, have you heard the word overwhelmed more than 23 times?
Yeah.
Muhammad Abu Bakr, me. Yes. Okay. We are here to tell you you're not alone.
Nah. I think everybody's feeling it. This is a really tremendous time overall, and I think we've been talking about it. And I guess we've been talking about in the show so far this season in planning, and before we actually get to our journey, before we start, we've been talking a lot about unpacking what's stopping us and the challenges that we face, to whether it's we do it to ourselves or we're extending that agency into, like, you know, giving into other people's expectations or society and whatnot, all these challenges. But we started talking, and we called ourselves out last episode because we're like, when are we get to actually doing into doing what we want to do? And this is kind of, I guess, the theme for today also, is like, with everything that's overwhelming that's going on, how do we run our own race and focus on what we want to do? Clearly, everybody is saying they're overwhelmed too. Used and misused is what Myron is saying.
Yes, Myron, we feel you.
Yes. It's kind of like it's become synonymous to busy. I think for a while, like, I have a busy schedule.
No, busy was the go-to thing. Busy was the cool thing to be, because if you're not busy, then, you know,
then you're missing out.
Not just that you're missing out, then you're a failure. Then what are you doing with your life? Then, you know, you're not using your full potential. And it goes back to this conversation. Shout out to Attorney Ibrahim Awad.
Yeah.
He has this motivational 30-minute motivation, morning motivation on Clubhouse, and they were talking about, you know, being present in the moment for this one thing. And he was talking about how he has a list of things, a to-do list that's over 20 something items. And I was just like
a daily?
Yeah, just for that day. He was just talking about just that day. Okay. He's looking at his to-do list and it's over 20 something items. Like, Ibrahim, that's ridiculous. But then it goes, he went in and he's like, yes, but within the things that need to be done, there are priorities.
Right.
And how do you discern the most important from the important?
Right.
Because, and he said it, and it was like, if everything's important, then nothing's important.
Yeah.
But what we've internalized, what we've been conditioned into believing, is that you need to always be on the go. You need to always be doing something. You need to be busy, which takes us back to this, like, oh, I'm busy, I can't. Oh, I'm busy, I can't. Oh, what are you doing though? Like, what are we doing?
Because it became literally a state of mind, right? Like, if somebody is like, hey, do you want to go out and get coffee? It's like, I'm busy. That is an acceptable answer, right? But it's also just a state of mind, like, I'm busy. Like, I don't know what I'm busy with necessarily.
But, you know, breathing is a lot of exercise.
But I'm busy. But now it's like, okay, with mental health in mind, I think the evolution, that's my own analysis, I think the evolution has kind of, now we're overwhelmed. There's too much going on. There's too much, I think also just like the world stage, like worldly events, about like everything that's happening too with the pandemic.
There's the uncertainty, there's the unknown, there's the fear. And then, of course, we can't rule out you know, how media is just like blasting basically mostly the negative news. You don't see the good that's happening. You don't see the people that continue to be resilient despite everything that's going on. We're not hearing about the people in DRC who are literally in the middle of like a volcano and genocide and you know, their land be everything basically. But we're not hearing about the festival that was just held in a community or in a village, bringing back the community, bringing the community leaders together. We don't hear that. That's not on the news, because that goes against us just really recognizing that, you know what, with everything bad that's happening, there's still good. There's still plenty of good. There is a deliberate effort to blur out that this universe has balance. We might not be seeing it because our lens is shifted, our lens is tinted, our eyes are specifically diverted to something, you know, that's fear centered, that's, oh my God, I have so much to do and I don't know where to start, and you know, I want to be doing more, I should be doing more, I could be doing more. All the please, let's just delete the shoulds, coulds, and woulds out of our vocabulary for a little bit, just for a little bit. What
honestly, the one thing that's one thing I realized recently is that, like, I keep saying I have so much to do, and kind of back to your story is like, I will write my to-do list and at the beginning of each day, and it'll just be this manifesto of things to do. And I'll look at that and I'll be like, oh my God, I have so much to do. And it wasn't really helpful for me to be in that mindset or stay there for too long, as to like in ruminating that I have so much to do. And I realized that I'm actually making myself anxious before actually I get to do anything. Sometimes being patient is the best course of action in a particular instance, because things around you outside of your control need to develop first.
It's the outside your control part, Myron, that people have a serious issue with, because everything in this world that is run by this messed up system has us believing that we need to be in control, that if you don't have control, you are not. And that kind of voids anything else. Like, what's the point of praying if you have to be in control? What's the point of calling in or hoping or visualizing, or if you need to be in control, if you have to have everything in control? I don't know if this is making sense, but in my head, it's making a lot of in my head, it's making a lot of sense.
It's making sense to me.
You know what I mean? It's like, okay, everything happens for a reason.
Right.
We don't have control of everything, but we do have control over certain things. We can't control what comes our way, but we can control how we react to them. We can control how we deal with them. We can control how we work with them. For us, not for anything else. How many of us actually take the time to recognize the progress that we've made? How many of us actually take the time to count our achievements? How many of us take the time, and I'm talking on a, like, if not on a daily basis, just like on a daily basis, just before you go to sleep, if you check, okay, here are my you know, the top 3 things that I've achieved, that I am happy with, that I have done, that have brought me happiness, that I have something. We don't, because, you know, we're so busy.
I think that calls for like moments of reflection. Like if that, I noticed that if that is something embedded in my everyday routine, then that's really when I'm most, I'm getting something out of my day. But
Myron,
I work so hard to be lazy that this topic is not making sense to me.
Myron, please just elaborate a little bit on the working hard to be lazy. How are you being lazy? Because, you know, I think if I have this conversation with some of the elders in my family, I would be considered very lazy, but then I have conversations with people who are actually in my part of my daily life.
Yeah.
And what I'm hearing from them is you're doing too much. You need to chill. You're doing too much. Like, this is not sustainable. Whatever you're doing, you will break. Stop doing so much.
But that's back to pacing yourself, though.
No, but what I'm saying is, I'm back to internalizing what we're getting from the outside world, right? And from the outside world, I have one side that's telling me, and this is the one side that I tend, like, this is the one side that I grew up listening to and basically shaping my life around, because the elders in my family that are saying that you're wasting your life, you're wasting your time, what are you doing? Why is there no progress in your life? But it's just like, But then on the other hand, you have the people who are actually part of my life, actually doing this work with me or doing some of the work with me, that are telling me you're doing too much. You're doing so. How do I bring them two together? You know what I mean? The only way I can personally I can keep going forward is I take this, I recognize it, and I keep it to the side. I take this, I recognize it, and I keep it to the side, and I actually hear myself. Because if I keep paying attention to both, I'll get sucked into a cycle of what ifs. So what if they're right? What if they're right? Like, what if I am not doing enough? And what if I am actually going to kill myself doing all the work that I'm doing?
Okay, so my response to that is two things. One, like, I really want to say, why does it matter? Like, why does it matter what they're saying, is what I'm saying. Because it's back to, if running your own race, right? Like, and going at your own pace. And so much, and listening to all the voices that are coming through, and how we're planning, how we're making decisions, all of it. And and in my journey, do I need to move faster because I'm hearing the other perspective that I'm going too slow. They think I'm going too slow. And so you get just caught up in a cycle of not running your own race. It's like you're almost just like not necessarily on autopilot, but you've essentially give up the agency to have that horse run by other people.
You know, I need a pen and a paper, because what you're saying is bringing an image that I saw in something I read.
Okay, I can let you borrow mine.
Thank you. And it's a comparison, but keep going.
So that was the first thing. That was the first point. The second point was,
sorry.
It's not that I want to discount what other people's reflections or their perceptions are, because I think there's a way that you can filter, and I don't really know how to put this in a succinct way, so bear with me. So don't throw out the baby with the bathwater is the analogy that's coming up for me. So there is something to glean from what people are saying, that in how they perceive you, that I can sort of take that as a point and reflect on it and see where I am and measure that against like what I've come up with so far. And then decide at that point whether I think I'm at the point where I should be based on like where I'm at right now, my own personal internal locus of control. What's wrong with my pen?
It's not working.
Sorry.
That's okay.
She just doesn't know how to. That's okay. We can get you working. You are good. You're good enough. You are enough. You are sufficient. We can make you work again. You are worthy. Okay, so that's your.
This is the diagram here. Wait. Yeah. There. Okay. So basically, on this one, you're focusing your energy on everything that's around you, on everything that's coming in from around you, even just hearing and taking in what you're doing. It's all of this. Do you see how short these arrows are? Whereas if you just focus here and just run your race, just literally run your race. It's a bigger arrow, it's a longer arrow, it's a thicker arrow, it's just, it's just you. And it's not to discredit what others are saying. There's probably some value to it.
Right. I don't want to discard the whole thing.
Yes.
But I also don't want to take the whole thing with me. Like, I want to take gems and pieces of what they're saying.
Yeah.
And incorporate that.
Yeah.
I think what's coming up for me, especially with this visual, is internal versus external. Like how much energy you're expending worrying about those people's perception instead of just essentially picking some aspect of it,
yeah,
and reflecting on those aspects to see if it actually is true or not. Because sometimes people can give an objective, they can just reflect, they can just be a mirror to what they're seeing, and they're like, Dima, you're doing too much, because I see that you have this initiative going on, you started this other job, you have 4 other projects, you have like 2 other live streams that you do, like what is happening? Like we're concerned. I'm just holding up this mirror and showing you that there's just a lot going on, that you, because you're so focused in it, and because you're literally in the middle of like this circus that's like, I mean, we all have our own circuses, right? But it just looks so busy that like you're not able to like zoom out and see the bigger picture as to like how consumed you are in this journey.
Okay, I hear you on this, because I've definitely caught myself in these situations. But also, I acknowledge that the inner workings of my head personally and what's in my mind have certain things connected that I haven't always communicated to people, because being the Aquarian that I am, I'm just like a few steps ahead. And, you know, we talked about this the other day where, you know, we have that idea and we kind of zero in and run to where it's going to, like where it could go to the full potential. And then we see what a great potential that is. And then tracing back these steps to the starting point to be like, okay, now I need to actually start. And that's not happening. But I do want to connect this to what you were saying here, internal versus external.
Yeah.
And I want us to just like take a moment and ask ourselves, how much of our planning, how much of the things that we tell ourselves we need to be doing is actually based on what we think people want to see us do, or what people are expecting us to do, or based on just like what we want people to think of us as we do it.
Can I just share a side note about that? Sometimes admittedly, I get annoyed when people are like, oh, you'd be great at this. You should do that. And I'm like, I thought about that. But no, thank you. Like a very like simple, trivial thing, like juices or like refreshing beverages. Okay.
Which
or
you
like,
do really
or coffee,
great.
right? Like, I mean, it's something that I enjoy doing, but I may not necessarily want to open a juice bar. Like, and that's what people like are in. I see it, I view it in a sense as like, I'm being pigeonholed to like do this thing. But I recognize that it's a talent and something that I'm good at, but I may not necessarily want to expend all my energy into it, because that's not what I want to do necessarily 100% of the time. And in that, I also reflect whether or not I'm being too narrow. Like I'm not listening to what other people are saying in what they recognize in me. It's whether it's a talent, whether it's something, whether it's like a good or a service that I can offer to the world. And I'm somehow like shortchanging myself in having to like pursue that.
Yes. I just want to give a heads. I'm seeing a lot of comments, and this is great. We should have probably started by saying one of the things about the Ranting Rainbows episode is like, we're actually here to rant, so we're not necessarily going to be seeing these comments, but these are some great comments that we'll share. Here is what Mazin suggested. He's like, you know what I do when I have things to do? The 5-minute rule. Here is Mazin's 5-minute rule.
I like that.
I start doing things for 5 minutes, and usually 2 things happen. I realize that I'm really into it and get to finishing it, or 2, I realize I hate it and I'm not into it, but now I've gotten 5 minutes worth of whatever that is done. Yes.
I like it.
My great Ubuntu fellow. Exposure is sometimes not optional. especially for those in certain fields.
I
lost track of where we were talking about the exposure. Hamad, if you're still around, please loop us back in.
Clarify.
Dina Sleman Malimon Mushaf. Dina, what's up? Myron, you're in trouble. Okay, I write everything down when in meetings, so I need not spend the mind space to remember the details for one. That's, again, writing is a great way of we just need things to get out of our head to make room for solutions to come through. And that's part of the challenge, is that we're holding on to everything in our head because we don't know what's going to happen when they leave our head. One, will they be judged? Two, will they be lost? Three, will we be even more overwhelmed now that it's out in the universe? Four, what will the universe do with it once it's out there?
It's pretty much like holding on to your marbles, right?
So
can I tell you that I found a marble the other day on the floor, and I was like, someone lost their marble. And I picked it up. I held on to it. I was like, someone is going to need it back at some point.
Everything has a place. I need not remember where I might have last left something when I need it is another. Yeah. Sometimes we can't see how hard we are running, and that isn't sustainable, which is why we highly recommend having an accountability buddy. And not just identify who your accountability buddy is, because you don't have one accountability buddy for everything. That's unsustainable. But for whatever thing you want that accountability buddy to hold you accountable, identify how they will hold you accountable. Let them know how you expect them to hold you accountable. I didn't have to do that with Ines.
Yeah, I don't think we went through all these steps.
No, we didn't. But you know what? Now I'm realizing, okay, maybe. But you know how long we went through that journey of accountability. You remember we actually went to a website back when I first came back from England.
Yeah.
To here, and still in Towson and everything. And I was like, okay, Ines, and I was in the process of applying for jobs and all of that. And I was like, okay, so Ines, I found this website that's specifically designed to have to track accountability and stuff. So I need an accountability buddy. So I went and I registered and I did all this thing, and you're just like, what do I need to do, basically? Because it's too much work. It's just but you could just tell me. And I was like, no, but it has to be through the website. It has to be through this. It's just.
Yeah, it was too complex when you can simplify it.
Yes, and I overthink scenarios in my mind. Welcome to the club. We have T-shirts. Send your size.
I like Muhammad's comment. Instead of FOMO, I get FOGO, which is fear of going out.
Is the going out of your mind?
Or the physical going
out. Or
out.
the physical going out.
But they're not mutually exclusive.
They're not. That's true.
We can entertain both, actually.
Yes. It's kind of like the whole we're our own worst critics thing, which is that we don't evaluate ourselves accurately. It's true that we're not evaluating ourselves accurately, but are we recognizing, more so than recognizing that we're not evaluating ourselves accurately, are we recognizing why we are evaluating ourselves that way? Because there's a root to that. And if we don't catch that root, if we don't understand that, if we're not face to face with that root, then we'll just keep going back to it. It's just going to keep popping up in a different phase, in a different topic, in a different area of our lives, but it's going to keep popping up. It's kind of like having a toxic relationship. If you don't heal, what is it in you that is attracting that toxic personality into your life? You will keep attracting toxic people into your life because there's something in you that is attracting this toxicity. It's not about that specific person. It's something in you that is gravitating towards toxicity, and that's the thing that needs to be healed. If you're not healing it, it'll just come back, in a different name, in a different form, in work, in a relationship.
So I was actually having this conversation the other day. So it's more so being gosh, like being stuck on or being drawn to certain dynamics that are unhealthy rather than codependent on a person. Because a lot of back to like toxic relationships, just a little bit of a segue. I know we're kind of drilling a little bit, but it's more so about sometimes we can identify that we're codependent on one thing or one person, but I think what back to Mazen's point and being like your own worst critic is that sometimes we don't recognize that we're codependent on certain dynamics that may be unhealthy, that we go out and seek those dynamics because they're in our environment, they're in our circles, they are at work, whatever that reinforces it in our life, and we get drawn to that. And so when we do the reflection, you're tunnel visioning on a one particular aspect of yourself, and so you're unable to kind of see the big picture.
Yes, sorry for those just joining us and tuning in. Thank you for joining the Afrikanunicorns Ranting Rainbow series for today. This is our second season and it's episode 7. Wow. And today we're literally just ranting. There is no script, there's no particular topic. We're just talking about all the things that have been coming up over these past 2 weeks since our last episode, things that we've experienced, things that we've spoken about with our friends, with our family, things we've had to deal with, and just generally things that we've noticed. And what we've noticed is that everyone is overwhelmed. Everyone is losing their marbles one way or another. I wonder how many of my marbles people are out there somewhere.
Like that marble that I found and I picked up.
So this is what we're talking. It's share with us the things that you've recognized, the trends that you're seeing around you. Are you feeling the sense of overwhelm? Are you feeling the sense of limbo where people just feel like, oh, I actually don't know where to start. I don't know how to take a decision because I don't know what's going to come. This fear of the unknown, this worry, this doubt that we can actually handle what's coming when we don't know what's coming.
Yo, like I can't tell you how many conversations I had with friends recently. I would say like within the past 2 weeks, that's pretty much the main theme. And I think especially during this time when we are pretty much considering having to go back to work. And a lot of people that are in the dilemma of going back into the office and whether that's even going to be a thing. And everybody's places of work is just approaching that differently. And we were talking about it earlier, like the whole pandemic time has been just a reevaluation and reflection time in general in everybody's life. And even now, when adding the conversation of having to go back to work, there's a reevaluation again of, am I in the right place? Do I need to go back to this job? Because the rhetoric is still the same. You know, we haven't, in a lot of people's work, and I think a lot of people are feeling that too, it's that we haven't really, the lessons learned from the pandemic hasn't been applied. You know, we're having to come back to a workplace the exact same way. Like we haven't necessarily adopted anything different. We're still talking about going back into the office and sharing space, and none of that is changing. So there is still there's a frenzy of, okay, I need to look for another job. Maybe this isn't even the career for me. Maybe I need to go back to that passion project that I've put down. Maybe I need to continue with something else. And I think it's just kind of the having to respin again. And then reevaluate everything, and then kind of like respin the wheel again, and it's like it's happening.
But why are you respinning? Why are you reevaluating? Is it because now you have to enter or be back as part of something that no longer aligns with the new post-reflection, post-COVID you?
Yeah.
Then that in and of itself is a crossroad.
Right.
Because am I really inclined to reevaluate and respin again to fit into something that I've already acknowledged? I've already seen this space isn't good for my spirit. Like, no, thank you. Bye. Now, once you've made that recognition, once you've acknowledged that, this place isn't actually good for me, it's not really where I want to be. I've toyed around with that passion project. I've looked into that. So why not take this as an opportunity instead of having to go back and respin and reevaluate to go back into this space? Why can't I respin and reevaluate for my passion project, for something that I want, as opposed to for that? And this is where the outside and the external environment plays a role again, because then people are going to look at you like, what do you mean you're going to leave a stable job, a high-paying senior position job to go paint?
So back to your little visual that I like so much.
It's not mine. I can't claim it. I can't even remember where I saw it, but it was very, very...
like the internal versus external. So one thing that I actually found very helpful, back to your point, is that even though that the job that I have right now, I'm also reevaluating whether or not, I want to stay. I want to actually pursue something that I'm more passionate about.
This is a hypothetical conversation for her job, in case anyone from her job is tuning in.
Yes. So in that line of thinking, right? So I have to determine for myself where does this job fit in my in-ass universe, and how much energy I want to expend. My in-assiverse.
Your in-assiverse.
And I think, okay, so once I've defined what role that particular job plays in my universe, I literally have allocated a certain amount of energy to it. And that's it. Like, there are all these voices that are coming through about, what about this promotion? What about this other high-paying job? You could go here and you can make so much more money with your experience and your talent and your personality. And while I consider that, I'm like, that's great, but I've already defined for myself where I want to go.
Yeah.
And this is how much energy that I'm going to put into that. And so every time I'm getting these suggestions or I'm getting these opportunities, not that I'm not considering them, I'm just no longer expending so much energy fretting about having to explore every single suggestion that's coming through. I'm like, oh, that's great. I can see where that fits in maybe down the line, or I can see where that fits in here. But right now, my priority in the job that I have, for example, so that I don't have to respin every single time there's another point in reevaluation in this going back to the office thing. I'm like, look, this is where I am. I'm good right here, right now. In 3 to 6 months, I can have a different conversation.
What this does, two things with that. One, that is arguably one of the kindest things you can do for yourself.
Yeah.
Having that frame, having that commitment to yourself. This is where I want to put my energy.
Right.
This is how much energy I am willing to put out for this specific part of my life, is one thing. And we do need to be kinder to ourselves. We do need to give ourselves some grace. There is so much going on. Even just hearing the news is an attack on it's an attack. It's an attack on our energy. It's an attack on our spirit. It's an attack on our balance, because all you're receiving is imbalanced information, because that's what the media is. Imbalanced information. But we're taking it in, and then we take in the problems our friends and our family are coming to us with, that we want to help.
I had to take a deep breath there.
I felt it.
Thank you. Breathing is really
breathing is
I swear
so
to God,
important. Yes.
Breathing is,
Can we just all take a moment to breathe,
to
please?
just breathe.
Thank you. And just as we do that, Mejdi comes up with fake
Fake
news.
news.
Mejdi, breathe, breathe. Okay. The second thing this does, and I say this out of experience, it is quite literally one of the most freeing things to do.
Hit him with the knowledge, Dima.
To say no, thank you.
Ooh. Why is it so hard to? Okay, I have so many questions. I have so many questions about what you said, and I agree with all the points. You should continue though. Before I cut you off, I already did it. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
It's okay. I love you anyway. No, okay. So I had end of May. I had quite a just like break down sort of type thing in my life, where I literally had to just like pause everything. And it wasn't even me hitting the reset button. This was basically God saying, stop for a moment. Nothing else is going to happen right now. You're just going to disconnect. You're going to sleep. You're going to... For 10 days, I did nothing. I was so exhausted from everything I had been doing. And there was when I started deleting some of these arrows here and just putting them together with other arrows where I'm going to focus my energy. I realized I do want to do a lot of things. I can do a lot of things. And we had this, it's actually one of our episodes. Yeah, we can do everything, sure. But should we? Should we be doing everything? And that's when I realized, no, I shouldn't. So I pinned down the 3 things where I know this is where I'm going to bring my true authentic self. This is where I'm able to really bring my all. Also, this is what pours into me. It is so, if you are in a space that is not pouring into you as much as you are pouring into it, stop it. Get out. Leave that space. Whatever that space is, leave that space, even for a little bit. Leave that space. If you are pouring into something, someone, a project, a job, a relationship, plants, if you are pouring into something that is not giving back to you, that is not pouring back into you, there is an imbalance in that relationship. There is an imbalance in that situationship. You need to leave. Leave and assess, but leave.
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 And don't forget to go when you leave.
Place. And so after I had that assessment, I got a message saying, oh, we'd like to recommend, like, you know, to nominate you for a leadership position, this board of, you know, a community organization, basically, of which I was a member, and support the work. I've gone, I've helped, and at any other stage in my life, sure, I probably would have just jumped onto that and just like, yes, I'll do it. But it was so clear to me because I had just gotten out of that assessment phase of my life, where I didn't even think twice. I didn't even leave it to say, okay, I'm going to think of, no. Just like, thank you for the consideration, humbled, grateful, not for me, all the best. And there was just this massive, so freeing. I felt like I could go around and dance. I was just like, why don't we do this more often? Like, no is a perfectly complete sentence. People, seriously, I know it's one word, but that's in the English language. No, it's okay to say no. And I know we hear that, but it's also important to know why you're saying no. Know your no.
There's a lot to like digest there, so I'm gonna let that
sit there. We're gonna go back and look at some of the comments. Wow, so much love, people. We need to do more ranting rainbows, you know. Yeah. Thank you. Thank you. Okay, here we have Adam Khatermo. Hi. Hello. Hello. Iman. Hi, beautiful African queens. Mejdi's asking about my bracelets. I don't know which bracelets you're talking about, but if it's the blue ones, it is a reminder that our revolution continues in Sudan. And for those paying attention, it's been more than 3 years since the signing of that facade agreement, and we are yet to have actual civilian rule. So keep asking questions and keep eyes on Sudan. Plug. Iman dropping some gems here. I feel like toxic relationships are intimately related to trauma we experience with our parents, which is why it's hard to conquer it in oneself.
Yep. Attachments and patterns and relationships, that's something that's like formed from super early. So yeah,
it's literally formed from the second you step into this world. Our attachment cycles, our attachment issues start the second we are born, when we are yanked out of our mother's wombs. That was our space of comfort. That was the only space we knew. And then we are here with creatures that are just looking at us and goo gagging, and then we don't know what's going on, and it's no longer as dark or as comfortable. We actually have to eat, like, no. And we spend the rest of our lives trying to heal from that trauma. We spend the rest of our lives trying to make sure we never feel yanked out of our comfort zone that way again. When we're talking about other emotions that one is feeling, Myron is saying he feels more frustrated than overwhelmed.
That too.
Where do you think that frustration is coming from, Myron? I'd be curious to see.
Oh, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
So a lot of the frustration, I'm engaged in similar hypothetical thought exercise. I don't remember what that was about.
The hypotheticals about the job.
That's funny. Ooh, I don't remember.
Frustration. We were talking about frustration.
So a lot of the times I think in kind of just being sensitive to like your environment and all the news that is like all the negative news that is kind of seeping in, and consuming too much of it also can add to that sense of being overwhelmed. And I think a lot of, in checking where, that's an excellent question that you asked, is like, where is the source of that frustration? Because I think a lot of the times I sit with those frustrations and I go through it and I identify certain root causes that it could be related to what's happening in Afghanistan, what's happening with this current administration's like response to vaccines and the pandemic, having to go back to physically to work and all the injustices that are happening. And I think to a certain extent, you sort of personify all of these injustices and tragedies and anything that's negative that's happening. And I carry all of that just in my living room. And then I step outside and go for a walk and go to the park nearby and look at nature and the birds chirping and squirrels are like everywhere playing. And I'm like, oh, life is good out here. You know, and not everybody, I'm grateful because like not everybody has the luxury of like doing that. But also, I guess my point is that like in kind of internalizing all these frustrations about what's happening or what we're consuming from the outside, from just our living space, that there are, in being grateful about the little things that are immediate to us, that even just stepping outside and going for a walk and everything is seemingly okay, that puts things for me in kind of a bigger context or a bigger picture, that like it's not all going to array, or the whole world isn't ending like I have in my head that I've just pictured 5 minutes ago going through the news or reading a whole bunch of articles or learning about this other tragedy that's happening in the world. And that is sometimes a great reset. to even going back to Mazen's point about the 5 minutes to reflect on your tall to-do list. It's like the 5 minutes to also connect with something that's going well, even just going outside and breathing and just seeing kids playing in the park, or
let's not even go like as far as hearing the birds chirp or seeing the squirrel, because as you said, not everyone has access to that park. Just go outside and look up. Look at the sky's still up. The clouds are there, even if they're not, even if they're dark, even if they're heavy. They're there. That sky is still up. The world hasn't ended. Trust it's for a reason. Just really take a moment and trust it's for a reason, that you can breathe in this light. However heavy it is, however dark it is inside us,
right?
However much we're internalizing, all the people that are going out for walks and taking the frustrations they have in their own living rooms for walks with them, and then bits of them are just gonna like start at people. But the sky's still up, the earth is still under you. Connect. Nothing in this universe is in isolation. Nothing. If you go to the park, you will see the spider webs with the ants connected to the trees and the branches leaning on each other. Everything is. We are the only beings that think we need to be on our own. Humans are the only beings that somehow have gotten this idea of, nah, we don't need anyone.
And being in control.
It is because we feel the need to be in control that we end up, spiraling into this individualistic mindset.
Right.
Because in indigenous communities, in understanding that whatever you do, you can't control anything anyway.
Yeah.
There is a divine plan, and you are here for a purpose, and you need to trust that. In indigenous communities, that is central to who we are, to what we are, how we operate with everything around us.
It's the emphasis on the collective.
That's where the emphasis on the collective comes from. Right. Because you understand you're part of a divine plan, then you understand that everything that has been created and everyone that has been created is part of that plan too.
Right.
So there's nothing you need to do alone or in isolation from anything else, and nothing you do is without impact on everything else and everyone else.
Right.
Even just how you feel. Even the moment you feel happy, the moment you breathe just a bit lighter, trust the rest of us are breathing just a bit lighter with you.
It's kind of, I think, to that point, is just smiling. Because sometimes like people are like, what are you smiling at? I'm like, you never know what the smile might inspire in somebody that's seeing you out on the street, whether it's just a spark of joy or that this may be the first smile that I'm seeing in my day. And it's just that positive influence that's contagious that may have some great impact on somebody else, back to your point. But we're coming up on the hour.
Yes, we are. We have a very...
we have a lot of great comments.
We do.
Yeah.
And I want to take a moment to recognize this queen, Patricia.
What's up?
Of Congo Love. Take a moment and check out Congo Love and the great work they do, connecting our family in DRC to the diaspora and shedding light. Here is Patricia saying, I recently was in Congo and I realized these conversations are important in communities across Africa. By the way, just a side note, thing I was talking about, the gathering of community leaders that was organized by this queen. I didn't even know she was going to be tuning in, but there it is. People live their daily lives focusing on survival and forget to just breathe and dream. How do we connect this knowledge beyond the social media, but to the grassroots, to learn from these conversations and to contribute and connect it to their daily lives? Keep asking questions, keep reaching out. I think that needs to be an episode on its own. And you and I, Ines and I were talking about this as well earlier, again, with the whole starting as African unicorns, still being African unicorns, but sort of diversifying how and what we're discussing, and still within the context of Africa and her diaspora. And ultimately, this is it. How do we get these conversations going? How are we drawing in inspiration from people in the Congo who are just focusing on survival, or really everywhere else, focusing on survival and forgetting to dream, forgetting to actively love, forgetting to hope, afraid to hope, afraid to dream, traumatized to love. Muhammad Rashid thinks my drawing looks like Corona.
Let's end on something positive.
Yes. Myron to the rescue. Thank you, Myron. Torre del Viejo. That's another page you all should follow, a collective of podcasts and broadcasts, different topics to do, again, with the power of the collective and the questions we are so desperately trying to avoid asking ourselves. Like, for example, this. Are we focusing on what's happening or what's not happening? Are we frustrated about what's happening or what's not happening?
That scarcity mindset. If you're focused on what you don't have all the time.
Frustration from people obviously trying to capitalize on the current situations of suffering, either deliberately or ignorantly, and others in positions to call them out on it, keeping quiet. I'm going to sit and cry here, Myron. This is the story of my life. This is literally what I'm going through personally right now. People who know the truth, people who know what's being said is nothing more than fear-mongering, is nothing more than just trying to stop you in your tracks, but they'd rather not say anything because they don't want to rock the boat, because they're not sure how that's going to fire back. But we have magical unicorns who will step out and call things out and keep us real.
Rock the boat or flip the boat altogether and be like, come up with something new.
Why not? Why not? On that, to stay away from these frustrations and these panics that do and will continue to pop up, run your race, unicorn. Run it.
I think that's pretty much our message, right? Like, it's focus on you, pace yourself, and focus on your own race rather than internalizing everything else and looking up and seeing where other people are in their races, and comparing how you measure up and letting that define your own internal success. But define it for yourself, get on your horse and run your race.
And take a moment to acknowledge how far you've come in your race, not in comparison. Don't compare yourself to other people. Compare yourself to you. Compare yourself to where you've been and where you're going towards, not other people. Because people haven't gone through what you've gone through. Maybe they've gone through parts of what you've gone through, but exactly your experience, I can't even imagine what my life would be like if I'd gone through everything Ines has gone through.
And I think we forget that we each have our unique perspective.
Yes, unicorn.
Yeah.
Go.
It's like, I mean, we could go through the exact same experience, but come out completely differently on the other end. Because the way that I internalize things, the way my perspective, my mindset, what I bring to the table is mine. And I think owning that confidently into like also running your race is valuable, so valuable that I have something to contribute to my own course. That it's not stopping and looking at what everybody's doing so I can like take their thing. Like everybody has their light and thunder in their own unique ways. And sometimes we look up and we're like, oh my gosh, you're such a ... Like you're an eloquent speaker, or you are a great writer, or you present this so well. But in getting stuck into comparing other people, you forget that you also have your own, whatever the light is. Like I might be a great editor, or I might be great at whatever else. I might be a great cook, and not noticing that and accentuating other people's great things, and then not looking at your own.
Yes. So as this weekend comes to an end, and before you start next week, oh, well, if you're on the continent, you probably already started your week, because in some countries it starts on Sunday. Anyway, take a moment and list 10 of your top achievements until now. Feel free to write more, but have at least 10. You do have 10 amazing things you've done and achieved in your life. I believe that. I don't know who you are. I don't know where you're watching this from. I don't know. But I know if you are here watching this in any capacity, you have 10 things that you have absolutely achieved and should be proud. Okay, we said we're no should in the bucket. Claim it, own it, write it down, have it in a piece of paper, fold it, keep it in your pocket, in your wallet, at the back of your phone, whatever it is. When the what ifs start bubbling, open that piece of paper, remind yourself of these achievements. Remind yourself of how far you've gone in your race, and keep going.
I want to draw a rainbow and like put all these achievements, like the rainbow is the background, and then to put all my achievements in there. So whenever I get stuck and I open it, it's just a rainbow of colorful things of all my achievements. And it's just going to make me feel great about myself. Is that vain?
No.
You think that's acceptable?
I think it's perfectly acceptable.
Okay.
I think it's perfectly acceptable. I think all of us should color and paint and make it whatever feels best for us to look and just be proud of how far along we've come.
And I think on that note,
Myron says homework. Yes, Myron. Homework only if you feel like it. Sandra says, in the spirit of connection, quiet the noise, listen to nature. Lessons are everywhere.
Yes.
Yes, they are. And this is a perfect closing point, I think.
Yes. I've enjoyed having this conversation with you.
Me too. I love ranting with you.
Along with llama and elephant.
And elephant. And unicorn in the back.
So thank you all for tuning in.
Thank you. We'll see you in 2 weeks. We don't know what the date is.
All my devices are preoccupied at this moment. So hit us with the date, Dima.
I am trying to. This machine isn't working with me. Okay, here.
This was supposed to be a swift thing, Dima.
I don't. Okay, 5th.
Okay, September 5th. That was actually my job, so I'm projecting.
But you see how I didn't internalize it? I just blocked it, returned back to sender. I returned back to sender.
Oh, man,
yes,
that's good.
It's the 5th of September. I'll probably be on the go and follow EdFu Foundation, to which I'm late for my meeting with them. But the 5th will also be the last day of Africon. Check them out, EdFu Foundation page on Facebook. Thank you all for tuning in, for all these great comments and feedback. Go back, share this video, tag people to it if you felt it was useful, if someone can benefit from what you've heard. And we'll see you on the 5th.
Bye, everyone.